Sometimes a reunion tells us more than the season itself, simply because time has passed since they were actually living through the experiment together. They've had time to watch themselves back, hear from each other, sit with what happened, and maybe see things differently. So now the question becomes, did that time lead to real growth? Did anyone take ownership? Did anyone understand the impact that they had? And who offered repair or missed that opportunity completely? And for me, there was one moment that became the most touching moment of the entire reunion. I'm diving into all of that today. Hi, I'm Dr. Pam, therapist and relationship counselor, and I'm so happy that you're here. Whether you've been with me for a while, know that I am grateful, and if you're new here, welcome. This channel is a space where we look more deeply at ourselves and our patterns in our relationships. And if that resonates with you, I'd love for you to join us. Also, I have some exciting news. I am working on creating channel memberships, and they'll be coming soon. This will be a deeper space for those of you who want more reflection, more personal growth content, and resources to help you take these relationship insights into your own life. And just to be clear, I am not moving any of my Therapist Reacts videos into membership. Those will always be available to everyone. I'll share more soon, but I'm really excited to open that space with all of you. Okay, let's start with Ludwig. I already did a full video on Ludwig and Camilla where I talked about the growth work I saw for each of them. You can check that video out if you'd like, but for today, let's look at where they seem to be now. Ludwig was asked about calling off the relationship after less than 2 days. He continued to explain that he needed more emotionally and physically from Camilla. He felt he was giving more and that the relationship felt more like a friendship. Then the host asked him if he could pinpoint exactly what he needed from Camilla, and this was his response.
No, I can't say much more than what I've already said. At that point, all I can really say is that it felt like to me that we were more friends than we were a couple.
So with Ludwig, we are seeing limited self-reflection. His answer is so limited that it makes me wonder whether he fully understands, even for himself, why he ended things. Because keep in mind, Camilla said that they had pineapple, and we know what that means. She also said that on the way to the party, they were saying to each other that they had felt like the strongest couple. And then after the party, he ended it. So for him to say that he can't really say more than he has already said tells me a couple things. Either he doesn't fully understand why he shifted so drastically, or he's not being completely honest about it. It feels more like he does not actually understand why he felt the way that he did. So unfortunately, Ludwig appears to be in the same emotional place he was during the show. There doesn't seem to be much new insight, much deeper reflection, or much more understanding of the impact this had on Camilla. And this is so important because when a relationship ends, whether you are the person ending it or the person being left, one of the most important things that you can do is learn from it. Growth does not mean you have to change your decision about a relationship ending. It means you understand yourself better. You understand the other person's experience better, and you can look back with more clarity than you had, so you can move forward with more confidence. Next, I love this moment.
It sounds like you're the one without feelings and thought we were only friends, or have I misunderstood?
With Camilla, we are seeing growth because she uses her voice to question him. From what we were shown during the season, she seemed to mostly accept whatever explanation he gave her. But in this moment, she is not just accepting it, she is questioning him. And she does it in a way that feels mature, grounded, and respectful. In my video about Camilla, I talked about how her lack of relationship experience may have made it harder for her to advocate for herself with Ludwig. And that is why this stood out to me, because now we are seeing her use her voice. She is not attacking him. She is not trying to shame him, but she is also not abandoning her own experience. This is growth, and I was really happy to see it.
Yeah, I think you have.
What?
Then everyone misunderstood
Is anyone else
You're being
confused?
very unclear.
I'm confused now, too.
And this may also show us what Camilla might have experienced if she had used her voice more in the relationship with Ludwig and tried to advocate for herself. She may have been met with blame from him. I hope that she put those pieces together at the reunion, because when someone is already unsure of themselves or less experienced in relationships, blame can make them quiet their own need or even struggle to have clarity about what's going on in the relationship. It can teach them, if I speak up, I will become the problem. And I love that the other people expressed confusion too, not because they were trying to gang up on Ludwig, but because sometimes we need people to gently challenge our blind spots. There are moments when we cannot see the inconsistency in our own story until someone else reflects it back to us. This next clip points even more to Ludwig's need for personal growth. Let's watch.
Yes. And so then you'd actually gone further than a lot of the other couples.
My point exactly.
I just don't understand this, Ludwig.
I've already tried to explain it the best that I can to everybody, so I don't have much more to say.
It might be easy to think maybe he's holding back or maybe he's lying, and the truth is we will never know that for sure. But what does seem apparent is that Ludwig seems to lack words. That may point to a lack of self-awareness and personal insight. And that's important because the more we understand ourselves, the more language we have for our own experience. Self-awareness gives us access to words. It helps us name what we felt, why we reacted like we did, what shifted inside of us, and what we may not have understood in the moment. So when someone has very little language for a major emotional shift, it can suggest that they have not fully made sense of that shift within themselves. And without that deeper understanding, they may not be able to offer clarity even when someone genuinely tries to understand, meaning Camilla wanting to understand Ludwig, and that may not be able to happen. And this next moment surprised me.
Yeah,
I don't know what to say. I've lost all respect for you on this, honestly. Now that I see it, on camera, I can't respect that type of behavior. That you won't even apologize for wasting her time.
I think there is something meaningful about Aron challenging Ludwig here. Sometimes we cannot fully hear something from the person we were in a relationship with because we are still inside our own perspective. We may feel defensive, misunderstood, or focused on our own experience. And sometimes, even if another woman had challenged Ludwig, he might have dismissed it as she is just supporting Camilla as her friend. But when another man challenges him, it can carry a different kind of emotional weight. Not because men's voices matter more, but because there may be less room to dismiss it as loyalty between women. It becomes a clearer message about respect, accountability, and how you treat someone you are in a relationship with. Aron was essentially saying, this was not okay. And I think there is something meaningful about a man being willing to say that to another man. And I also appreciate that Aron was not only naming the behavior, he was pointing to Ludwig's need for repair. He was essentially saying, this mattered, this hurt her, and you need to acknowledge that. That is not about humiliating Ludwig. It is about accountability. It is about helping someone recognize the impact of their behavior and take responsibility for it in a way that offers the other person deserved repair. And I have to wonder, was Ludwig able to say this next thing because of Aron challenging him? Let's watch.
I just want to add that, I don't blame you for anything. I don't put any of this on you. If it sounds like I do, I want you to know that that is not the case. You are really wonderful.
Thank you.
I hope Ludwig grows from being challenged by Aron, and I hope this moment provided some sense of validation or healing for Camilla. And I do want to acknowledge that Ludwig did offer her some reassurance. He made it clear that he does not want her to blame herself and that he does not blame her and that he still sees her in a positive light. And that might be helpful to Camilla because after such a sudden and confusing ending, it can be important to hear this was not because you were not enough. At the same time, reassurance and repair are not exactly the same thing. Reassurance can soothe some of the self-doubt, but repair usually requires a deeper acknowledgement of the impact. So that would look like this. I understand the way I handled this hurt you, and I am sorry for that. I love that Camilla seems so much more confident here. I didn't show you this, but I love the moment when she says that her DMs are blowing up. That is not just a funny or light moment. It also tells us something about how differently she may be seeing herself now. After an experience where she was left hurt, confused, and possibly questioning what she lacked, she now seems more aware of her own value. And I really do see growth in Camilla from this experience. And that is so important because when we go through something painful, we want to be able to come out of it with something like more clarity, more confidence, more self-trust, and more ability to use our voice. Okay, next, let's look at Ronja and Lars-Erik.
It was just really hard to communicate with each other. And so I feel like I said, I wanted to quit when we were in Greece, and I want to apologize because that wasn't a nice thing to say. But I wanted to be as honest as possible about what I was feeling so I wouldn't hurt anyone down the line. And that was wrong too, and I can see that now.
When I talk about repair, this is what repair can look like. Repair means that you have reflected on your own actions. It means you have some understanding of how your actions impacted another person. And it means you can express remorse without immediately defending yourself and explaining it away or shifting the focus back to the other person and what they did. And Ronja did that here. She was able to look back and say, in essence, I see where I struggled and I understand that it affected you. That kind of ownership does not erase everything that has happened in a relationship, but it does create a moment of emotional repair.
Do you wish you had acted in some other way or done things differently?
Yeah, absolutely. I do. I do wish that. I was so bad at expressing what I actually felt. I really wasn't good at doing that at all, and I definitely see that now.
And that is growth. Ronja, after reflecting on her experience, realized that she struggled to express herself clearly. And that kind of self-awareness is what is needed because it gives her something concrete to work on. Growth is not always a dramatic transformation. Sometimes growth is simply being able to say, I see where I struggled and I understand what I need to do differently next time. That is the kind of insight that can help someone move into a future relationship with more confidence and less fear that they are going to repeat the same pattern.
I think what you said was nice. I appreciate that we can talk maturely. Wish we could have then.
Do you wish that you had done something differently?
No, I think I gave 100%. I would ask the guys if I should be doing anything different in each of these situations.
With Lars-Erik, I believe that we are seeing the impact of little, maybe no self-reflection. Obviously, I can't be sure, but I find his response concerning. He said he would not have done anything different, but the truth is, all of us can learn and grow from our relationships, even when we believe we tried our best. When someone says, I would not have done anything differently, it can suggest that they see the relationship as something they simply endured rather than something they can reflect on. And if he gave his all and has nothing to look at in himself, then the implication is that the relationship challenges belonged entirely to Ronja from his perspective. And that is where it becomes concerning because relationships are almost never that one-sided. Self-reflection does not always mean discovering something terrible about yourself. It does not mean that you are blaming yourself or that you are saying that the other person did nothing wrong. Sometimes self-reflection leads to compassion for yourself. Sometimes it can help you see your own limits more clearly. Sometimes it helps you understand what you need in a relationship. And sometimes it helps you see where you could have handled something differently. But the point is that self-reflection gives you something to take forward. It turns pain into learning. And I'll say more about that when I talk about Aron. Next, the host asked Lars-Erik if their faith differences could have been a problem. Here's what he said.
I don't think I could have accepted her in the way she wants to live her life.
So Lars-Erik says that he could not have accepted Ronja because she did not share his faith or live her life through the same beliefs he has. But that raises a real question for me. If his faith was already a core part of who he is, why did he choose her in the pods? That is where I struggle with him saying he would not have done anything differently, because this was not a small difference that appeared later. His faith and values were already central to him. And if he knew he needed a partner who shared those beliefs, then there is something important to reflect on. And what also stands out to me is that Ronja took ownership for how she struggled to express herself, but he did not seem to take ownership for his part in choosing a relationship with someone he later says he could not live a life with. He allowed her to carry a lot of the responsibility for what went wrong without really saying, I also need to look at why I moved forward when I already knew she did not share something that is central to how I live my life. So when he says he would not have done anything differently, I question that. Growth would mean looking back and asking himself whether he was fully honest with himself and with her about how much that difference mattered. Okay, let's talk about Daniel and Johanna.
Here I am, realizing that I have learned a great deal. Because of this experiment and Johanna's constant encouragement.
I often say in my videos that words and actions have to align, and this is a perfect example of what it looks like when they don't. Here's the thing. I don't think Daniel actually felt encouraged by Johanna. I don't think he experienced her support in the way that he says he did. Instead, I think when she voiced her need, he sank into shame, feelings of inadequacy, and avoidance without fully realizing that was what was happening inside of him. He might know how to say all the right words. You support me, you encourage me, I appreciate you. But his actions may tell a very different story. His behavior may show withdrawal, distance, resentment, or emotional shutdown. That is why alignment matters, because the truth of a relationship is not only in what someone says, it is also how they respond, how they show up, and whether the other person can actually feel the care that they are describing.
I suppose I have it in me, but I just haven't coaxed it out yet. That's because I haven't really had to do it. And I have been really stressed, and I felt like, am I incapable of understanding easy instructions? I would like coffee in bed. I'd like you to listen to me. I mean, come on, Mr. Fiel. Listen to those words. She's trying here.
So with Daniel, we are seeing explanation without ownership. This might sound like ownership. It is not quite ownership. It feels less like ownership and more like managing how the moment is being perceived by others. A way of saying, I know how this looks and I want to explain myself, rather than, I understand the impact I had and I want to take responsibility for it. Daniel often said one thing and did another in his relationship with Johanna, and I don't get the sense that he fully understands that pattern. Growth requires understanding what was happening inside of you, how it affected the other person, and what you need to take responsibility for. He can reflect on, why did I keep saying I wanted this while behaving in ways that pushed her away? What was happening inside of me that made me withdraw, avoid, or fail to show up authentically? And in this next clip, after they talked about the recording, I think we see why Daniel has not really experienced growth yet.
Sure, and my understanding was Johanna wanted us to record for educational purposes, to learn how to argue better. It wasn't a big argument. It was more so we could she said, we should record this. And I did. And I said, okay, I recorded it. And then we listened to it. And then it was just like, we don't even need to listen to all of it. We can delete this video.
Daniel holds on to his story here without showing much understanding of why secretly recording your partner is not okay. He seems focused on explaining why he did it, but he does not seem to fully understand why it felt violating. And that is an important difference. Explanation can be about intentions, but ownership is acknowledging the impact that you've had on another person. I did a whole video about Johanna and Daniel where I address all of this if you'd like to check that out. So when Daniel keeps returning to his reason for recording, it feels like he is still trying to defend the action rather than understand the impact of his action. Growth would sound more like, I understand why that was not something I should have done. I understand why it hurt you. And even if I felt overwhelmed, I should not have handled it in that way.
What you're saying now doesn't make sense.
Daniel,
If she's
you're
already
digging your
recording.
own grave. You should apologize.
Yeah, I regret misunderstanding that, and I will own that.
This really highlights why personal growth is still needed here. Daniel says he is owning that he misunderstood, but that is not real ownership. That is still keeping the focus on his perception, not on the harm his behavior caused. Owning a misunderstanding is basically saying, I got it wrong. Owning impact is saying, what I did hurt you, and I need to take responsibility for that. Those are very different things. Everyone around him is essentially letting him know, you owe Johanna an apology. And instead of moving toward repair, his response stays focused on his own interpretation of what happened.
I mean, Johanna, I just have to tell you that you should be commended for what you put up with and for your patience, and that you still, you really, really, really tried.
Johanna was just provided healing words for how hard she tried with Daniel, and I love that. Sometimes the validation we never receive from the person who hurt us can come from someone else witnessing what we went through. What I would wish for Johanna is not to blame herself, but to gently reflect on why she found herself with someone who may have felt similar to choices that she has made in the past relationships. She said this experience with Daniel was triggering. And when something feels triggering, that can be a signal that the present moment is touching an older wound or an older pattern. It does not mean that she did anything wrong. It simply means that there may be something important for her to reflect on and understand. So I would encourage her to reflect on who she is drawn to, what feels familiar to her in relationships, and why certain dynamics may pull her in, even when they also hurt her. Sometimes we are drawn to what feels familiar, what we hope we can finally resolve, or what gives us another chance to be chosen differently this time. And perhaps her growth from this experience can help point her in a different direction, towards someone whose words and actions align, someone who can receive her care, and someone who does not require her to keep proving her worth through how hard she tries. Next, I just want to say something briefly about Ellen's response to Fabian.
And it's horrible to watch back, but in a way, I'm still really proud that I managed to find the strength to do it, not to drag it out and not to lie to anybody, and to be honest about how it felt for me in that moment. That's all you can do. It's the only thing you owe anybody.
I did a separate video on Ellen and Fabian's conversation at the party, so I won't repeat all of that here. But the heart of that video was this. Ellen could honor her gut, and Fabian's hurt could still deserve an acknowledgement at the same time. Repair would not have meant changing her decision or acknowledging wrongdoing. It would have meant recognizing the impact of it. So when we get to the reunion, I am not looking for Ellen to take back her choice. I am looking at whether there is any more emotional acknowledgement of what Fabian went through. In the video, I talked about how she can hold two truths at the same time, honoring her gut and acknowledging how hurt Fabian was. And I show you in that video how to do just that. Okay, moving forward, Angelica is asked why she ended the relationship so abruptly with Aron. After listening to her response, I will say that her explanation still felt about as unclear as it did during the episodes. I already did a full video about Angelica and Aron, so check that out if you'd like. But I do want to point out one important moment. Angelica gave Aron an acknowledgement that he said meant a lot to him. Even though she did not explain everything clearly, a sincere acknowledgement can still offer some repair.
I got this strong feeling that it wasn't right. And it was wrong of me to just run away.
Before I say more, let me show you Aron's response to Angelica saying that she ran away. The host asked Aron if he understood what happened, and this was his response.
Like she said, she ran away. I buy that 100%, and that's what I've said. The only thing I needed to get, I didn't get. I didn't get any clarity about what happened. I appreciate you saying you ran away. That means a lot to me because it helps me to move on with my life.
Angelica gave Aron an acknowledgement that he said meant a lot to him. Aron said that he thought she despised him. So when Angelica acknowledged that she ran, it may have helped him move out of the story that he had been telling himself, that she left because of something about him or because of how she felt about him. Instead, it placed the ending more where it belonged, on Angelica's own struggle, her own fear, and her own tendency to run away. And I want to say something about Aron here. I think his growth work is to reflect on why he came to the conclusion that she despised him. Because when someone leaves abruptly, it is very easy for the person who was left to turn that ending into a statement about their own worth. But sometimes the other person's leaving is much more about their capacity, their fear, or their inability to stay present in a relationship. I would also want Aron to explore what value he brings to a relationship and what he needs in a relationship. And I want to emphasize the word needs, because as I said in my video, I think Aron may have abandoned some of his own needs and focused more on supporting Angelica through the challenges that she brought into the relationship. And support is beautiful, but support should not require self-abandonment. A healthy relationship needs room for both people's fears, both of their needs, and both of their emotional experiences. And this next moment became the most touching moment of the reunion for me.
I personally have never heard or witnessed anyone that is evolved in the way that you have. Based on what you've said about other relationships, you inspire me. The way you stand firm when cracks appear in your relationship and you still provide her with this security and warmth.
I'm going to show you this moment in two parts. In this part, we see that Aron is emotionally moved, and that is because he feels seen. This is one of the most important human needs. We all want to be seen, loved, and accepted for who we are as a person.
It's incredibly beautiful to see. And it hurts so much to watch you go through that. But you are such an incredible guy. And man, I want you to know that.
Aron got the acknowledgement, validation, and compassion that he needed in that moment. And here I go again, but I do think it means something to see this between men, because so often men are encouraged to move past hurt quickly, to minimize emotional pain, or to act like rejection didn't affect them at all. But in this moment, Ibbe does the opposite. He does not dismiss Aron's pain. He does not tell him to just get over it. He offers him something emotionally impactful. He sees him and he validates him, and he speaks to the part of Aron that had been carrying hurt. So that is so important, because men need repair. Men need compassion. Men need other men who can say, I see how much that hurt you, and I understand why. That is a powerful form of male friendship. And I think Aron needed that. And when Ibbe gets out of his chair and both men express love for each other, that is something to admire, because that is what emotional courage can look like. It is not just offering advice. It is not taking someone's side. It is allowing tenderness, affection, and care to be visible. We do not always see men openly express love for each other in ways that are emotionally honest and unguarded. So when we do see it, especially in a moment where one man is hurting and another man moves toward him with compassion, it becomes more than just a sweet reunion moment. It becomes a model of emotional safety. To me, that was one of the most touching moments of the reunion. Okay, that is a wrap for today. Make sure to come back, because I will soon be moving on to Love Island, where there is always so much to break down: the chemistry, the mixed signals, the emotional games, the moments that look romantic but may not actually be safe, and the relationships that make us ask, is this connection real, or is it just intensity, or is it for show? I can't wait to get into it with all of you. See you soon.